How's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it breaking down the latest in Mets land as we have a key Big Mets update segment to get into on this Mets off day. Yes, a very rare Sunday where the Mets aren't playing baseball at the time of recording this, that being March 30th, 2025, as we're going to get into the key takeaways from the Mets dropping their first series of the year, headlined by Max Kranick looking like he might just be the next stud reliever in this Mets bullpen, and we're going to expand as to why exactly that is. Griffin Canning having nothing short of what was a very sharp and strong Mets debut that we saw this past night, as well as Jose Siri's electric play, exactly why the Mets brought him in for not only defensive upside, but an absolute speed demon on the bags. That paired with what is happening with the Mets in AAA, as we have a key prospect report to get into on our hopefully future ace and Brandon Sproat. How did Sproat look in the minor leagues today is what we're going to break down, as well as Nunez, a lot of other key players that will inevitably be impacting this Mets team throughout the course of the season. Maybe not now, but certainly sooner rather than later. And we're going to wrap up the show by getting into a Marlins series preview, going over the pitching matchups. And of course, we have to get into some very exciting health updates where everything, thankfully, knocking on wood, is treading upwards for the Mets and Francisco Alvarez, Manaea, and Frankie Montas. A lot of breakdown, little time to do so. So thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe on as you first chime in and letting me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below and what we're about to deep dive. And before we move forward into today's video, everybody, let's first hear a quick word from our sponsor that I'm so excited to break down, that being at Mando. Mando, the all-purpose, all-body deodorant, which I'm so excited to get into. Why, you might ask, Wardy? That's because this is a product that I've been using well before they even reached out and we've connected here to get a sponsorship deal done. Shout out to all you amazing Mets fans who helped make this possible, that we are reaching highs here on the platform, that we're getting deals with Mando. Mando, love their whole body deodorant. And if you guys don't know Mando, let me enlighten you folks, because they have a plethora of products that, mind you, are all clinically proven to block odor all day and control your body odor up to not 24, not 48, but yes, you guessed it, 72 hours. This has been a massive game changer from the time that I've used their product over this past year versus the previous deodorants that I've used. And mind you, this is not just for pits. This can be for behind your knees. This can be for, the areas that we're not going to talk about. Wherever you feel like you need deodorant, that is where Mando comes into play. And with their starter pack, which I have in my possession to a degree, folks, you have a lot of the other amazing products that they have, including their normal whole body deodorant Mando stick. We have their Mando wipes, which I absolutely love. Where were these back when I was in middle school and high school, especially, where I'm sweating bullets throughout the day just because I'm sitting there stressed doing classwork and stuff? These would have been awesome to have for my pits throughout the entire school day. I digress. We got the whole body deodorant as well, which is fantastic. We have the Mando body wash here, which is so good, and one of my favorites as well, the whole body deodorant, but this time in the liquid form here. Again, all the Mando products, I cannot say enough glowing things about them. Sponsor or not, I will continue to promote this brand, and for great reason, everybody. So now I'm calling on each and every one of you. If you guys want to get in on Mando, listen up to the following, folks, and please sign up today. How do you sign up? It's by controlling the body odor anywhere with @shop.mando and get $5 off your starter pack. Mind you, that's over 40% off with our amazing promo code. You guessed it, Wardy, W-A-R-D-Y, at shopmando.com. Shout out to Mando once more for being an awesome sponsor of the platform, and thank you, Mets fans, for making it happen. Alrighty, guys, and as we continue to break this one down, let's first kickstart this conversation by getting into a player that we broke down to a degree last night in our post-game coverage. I implore you guys to check out. We go live after every single Mets game throughout the entire course of the 162 and postseason play, and we're doing watch parties as well starting next week, but I'll expand on that later on in the show here because I don't want to get on too many tangents at once. Let's start this conversation by getting into a man that certainly stepped up big time in the bullpen and might just be the next stud reliever for this New York Metropolitan team, and yes, Max Kranick. Can we just take a moment to appreciate what was nothing short of absolutely fantastic work in his first official Mets season debut? Now, for people that are living under a rock that don't know the Max Kranick story, that's okay. Let me enlighten you. The Mets acquired Max Kranick right around a year and a half ago previous offseason entering the 2024 year there from the Pittsburgh Pirates. At the time, Kranick was coming off of an injury-riddled year, coming back from Tommy John surgery, and looked great in the early goings of spring training in 2024 for the Mets in the first couple weeks. Sadly, then went down with injury, which ended his spring training and went in hand with why he spent the entire 2024 season in AAA Syracuse. Kranick would go on to be actually eligible and available on the Mets NLDS roster that same year against the Phillies, but he did not get any playing time against that same Phillies. We come to find out that Max Kranick then getting ramped up, looking like a fantastic one or a multi-aim reliever for the Mets this spring training. Someone who I've had the privilege of building a relationship with here on the platform, met him at Mets Amazing Day a couple months ago. A tremendous person and even a better pitcher is what we're seeing. And Max Kranick gets thrown into the absolute fire when, mind you, this is a diehard Mets fan, a true Mets fan talent here, a guy who grew up going to Shea Stadium all the time, even as someone who resided more so in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And as a Mets fan who resides in PA like myself, I can always appreciate that. So obviously there is a big Max Kranick hive going on right now, that people that want him to succeed, not just because he was dominant in spring training, having a K to walk ratio of 15-1 with just around a 1.46 ERA across 15 plus innings. He was absolutely nails that we saw this past spring training, and what Kranick did in his season debut was nothing short of spectacular. Now, originally, I was fuming. I was mad at Carlos Mendoza because this had all the writings, in my opinion, to be an Eric Orsi 2.0 situation. In case you guys don't understand that reference, Eric Orsi was a reliever in the Mets organization the past number of years that has a lot of horizontal break with his slider and a lot of interesting aspects, tools in that arsenal, which made him an appealing pick, and the Mets were going to give him an opportunity, and they finally did give Eric Orsi an opportunity after multiple years of being a fringe MLB-type reliever for them. He makes his official debut for Christian Scott being exited out of the game in Pittsburgh last summer when he had to be adopting the entire mess of Christian Scott, and as one could sadly expect, he got absolutely teed up from thereafter. Max Kranick comes into last night's game, the series finale against the Astros, with bases loaded and one out thanks to Jose Butto probably being in a little bit longer than he should have been and not being able to get out of his jam. So Max Kranick's first batter he ever faces in a Mets uniform officially is Yordan Alvarez with the bases loaded and one out. And what does he do? On just a handful of pitches, I believe it was 7 or so, it was literally nothing, we see Max Kranick get a massive pop out to Mark Vientos, who makes the great snag that we saw there at the third base side that you guys see in the highlights right now, and then a key ground out thereafter that Luis Angel Acuna makes the play for, and that does it for Max Kranick's first official outing. Now, I know you might say, Wardy, why are we drinking so much Kool-Aid for just a couple of quick outs for Max Kranick? It's a reality that Max Kranick may very well be a high leverage piece for the Mets that they utilize throughout the entire course of this season. That's why he cracked the bullpen right away, and that's why the Mets are feeling as bullish as they are on him. And Kranick's arsenal was nothing short of great as well. He utilized just 2 pitches when, mind you, he has a starter mix, so he can throw 5+ pitches at you for the most part if he really wants to, but all he needed to utilize was the four-seam fastball that was pretty much around 97 miles per hour and the slider that was pretty much at 92. So talk about devastating slider fastball combo. I thought Daniel Nunez and Edwin Diaz were exciting. Little did I know that Max Kranick would just be a part of the group just as good as anyone else. Now, I understand that comparing Kranick to Edwin Diaz is apples and oranges in regards to their respective careers, but knowing that this is a homegrown talent, knowing that this is a man who said himself how much he prides himself on being here, and when I spoke to Max Kranick personally at Mets Amazing Day a couple months ago, I will never forget asking him, what is your key takeaway to be a part of something as special as this? And he said, it's pretty surreal signing autographs next to my childhood hero and David Wright, a fellow alum there at the Mets Amazing Day. And that's a prime example as to who Max Kranick is from the fan point of view. He's a selfless human being, a great human being, and to see him go out there and dominate as quickly as he did in a high leverage, high pressure cooker situation, a 1-run ball game for the Mets at this point in time, and he not only kept them in it, but he was fantastic in doing so. Mets fans, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What is your optimism level, 1, with Max Kranick this season, and 2, just how good can you expect a year from him to be? Because I truly believe that Max Kranick has all the makings to be a true innings eater for the Mets this year, to give them 50+ innings eaten, if not more than that we see throughout the course of the season, and doing it at a rate of hopefully right around a 3.5 ERA or lower. And I put 3.5 because that's usually my baseline for why my pitchers to be solid. Obviously, 4 is not ideal, and 3 might be asking for too much, but a sweet spot of 3.5 where either the expected numbers favor him, or maybe he's not an analytics darling in the end. We'll find that out, but Kranick, a tremendous start to his Mets career. career. And now let's see what Max actually has to say himself, because he had some key words to share on just his initial reaction to the entire debut that he officially made with the Mets. And this is what Max had to say.
Like being just kind of thrown into the fire in a bases loaded jam like that.
Yeah, I felt really good. Like I mentioned, my heart was definitely racing. It feels good to kind of get the jitters in the first one out of the way, but happy with how it went.
I love that too. He said that heart was certainly racing. It was racing for me too, watching Max come in, because I was stressing for him. I was going on X right away saying, this equally pisses me off just as much as when Eric Orzi came out there in Pittsburgh for Kristen Scott's mess a year ago. It didn't make sense then. It felt like it didn't make sense now, but I'm so happy to not only be proven wrong, but mind you, the only reason why I say it didn't make sense is not based on the player, but rather the context. This is his first official Mets outing, and you throw him into a ring of fire like never before, and for him to go out and comfortably handle it the way that he did, I think tells a lot about what Max Kranick can and will continue to be for this Mets team throughout the course of the 162. But Kranick wasn't the only key standout pitching-wise of this matchup, because there was one other man that simply cannot be slept on, and like Max Kranick, had himself nothing short of what was a tremendous spring training, refining, reworking that arsenal with Desi Druskull, Jeremy Hefner, everyone in company, and that is going to be Mr. Griffin Canning, guys. We talked about it last night, and let's reiterate it once more. Griffin Canning may very well be here to stay. And I gotta say, after taking some time to ponder it, a really interesting thing that I saw, and I apologize everybody if I don't have at least one error as I'm actively doing this. There's clearly something wrong going on, so ignore the little freeze there for a second. Everything should be good now. But Griffin Canning, who mind you was tremendous all spring long, utilizing that heavy cutter usage that we saw more of, utilizing the sink, the changeup, and pretty much the slide piece, which was great. Everything that is not the four-seam fastball, where Griffin Canning had his big bugaboos the past number of years, where he was giving up meatballs for home runs left, right, and center, because when you throw a fastball that sits like 92, 93, 60% of the time, I mean, it doesn't go without, it goes without saying, like, what else would you expect, right? The Angels couldn't figure it out, because them understanding pitching development would be a big smack in the face of reality, because that has not happened for them yet. But in the case of the Mets with their pitching lab, they're getting good things out of Canning. And, someone said to me that they believe that Griffin Canning could actually lead the Mets in innings eaten this year. And knowing that Canning pitched 170 innings this past year, it isn't that out of the realm of possibility, as crazy as it is to say. Canning, 5.2 strong innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, at 3.18 ERA to kickstart his Mets career. And there were 2 very notable things that we saw in Canning's outing, and they were as follows. It starts with the slider usage. Canning utilized the slider over 50% of the time. Yes, a 52% rate there that we saw him top out 90 on the slider and sat 87. That's an improvement. The velo uptick was certainly there. Four-seam fastball topped out 96, sat right around 94, so a slight uptick as well. That I thought he threw a little bit too much with the four-seam. I would have liked to see more utilization of the changeup and the cutter, but I also understand that went in hand with the matchups because he was facing a righty-dominant lineup. I'm sure Canning would mix things up a bit differently if he was facing a lefty-dominant lineup. Less sliders, obviously, because if he's hanging at them, they could go out of the ballpark real fast. And Canning was fantastic outside of one hanging pitch that we saw, which led to the Jeremy Pena solo shot to left, and then a slider down and in that wasn't terrible placement, but unfortunately, it's Yordan Alvarez, so of course you can't throw him anything close in the zone. Yordan goes deep in the center right gap, and that gives them their ultimate lead, as that would add to their second run of the ball game. But Griffin Canning was stellar. He was as sharp as advertised, really better than advertised. But if you guys followed along with spring training, then this is kind of what you should have expected, and you shouldn't be overly shocked to see it happen. Now the big question is how does Griffin Canning build off of this strong start? Because mind you, for context, to give you an idea as to how much the pitching lab is making a difference for this Mets team, Griffin Canning entering this past night's game against the Astros, had a 6.69 career ERA against the Houston Astros. Now, to see him go out and only allow 2 earned runs, in which they were the only mistakes he essentially made all game long, I mean, you really have to give a massive tip of the cap to not only Max, but as well as Griffin Canning, and what was a very sharp outing for him to kickstart his official Mets tenure. But guys, Griffin Canning had some key words to share on his outing, and let's hear exactly what he had to say.
With as much, familiarity as you have had in the past, was there any kind of adjustments you made to kind of attack that offense?
I think it's easier to face. I just go in there and just kind of knowing how I'm going to attack them. I feel like I've had more success in my career kind of facing teams that I know a little bit better. but I like pitching here, and I like the challenge of their lineup.
Mando was saying pregame how it might be tough to face a
Evaluate your first game with the Mets.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one to build off going forward. Yeah, I mean, I've had some tough battles with Jordan, so that's unfortunate to end it that way. But yeah, it felt like it was the right pitch there, just didn't quite execute it.
How would you evaluate your first? Now let's hear some quick words from Carlos Mendoza as to how he felt about Max Kranick's outing, especially.
Huge, you know, coming in with the bases loaded, facing Alvarez, not an easy situation. Kept making pitches and got out of it. You know, not only getting Alvarez and then Walker. I think attacking, but not only attacking, but executing pitches. So
That's a tough spot for somebody who's coming into their first big league game since 2022.
Yeah.
What do you like about how he handled
that's
it?
baseball. You know, we've been talking about this since the first game of the series. You know, you're trying to get him in a soft spot, and here he is. You know, in the eighth inning, down one, bases loaded, facing one of the best hitters in the league. So, and he.
Paying your home run and that
Yeah.
Alvarez, right?
Yeah.
What did you like that he did? Just with the slider today was good.
Slider was good, changeup was good. The velo. I mean, when you look at the first couple of innings, the fastball was up to 96, something that we didn't see in spring training. And he kept attacking, he kept mixing his pitches. I thought overall he had a really good outing.
Carlos, it was really just those two pitches.
Now, the final key takeaway I got to share with you guys before we get on to more on the Brandon Sproat front, Francisco Alvarez health status, same thing with our pitchers that are currently on the injured list, as well as that Marlins series preview. And of course, we have to talk, at least for a brief moment here, on Jose Siri, the true electric factory, everybody, because when the Mets acquired Jose Siri going back to the offseason, we had a contingent of fans that truly had no idea whatsoever as to why the Mets brought him in. And right away, I reiterated that Jose Siri is as boom or bust of a batter as they come, but when looking at defense and base running ability, he's quite the best in the game. You look at north of 99 percentile in his outs above average, meaning he's that elite defensively, again, in pretty much a class of his own. And then you look at his arm strength right towards 99 percentile as well, which means Jose Siri can comfortably throw you out deep in right field, backing up, say, Juan Soto missing the ball, and then getting that throw comfortably there to the hot corner to get that runner out. And speaking of getting the hot corner, Jose Siri managed on a simple walk to steal second base, to get to third on a flyout, and then to steal home, and what is unofficial because I believe they labeled it as fielder's choice, but listen, that was night and day. It was clear as day, rather. He stole home in that situation. That was the Mets' only run of their series finale in Houston. Leave it to the former Houston Astro, who was making his season debut in a Mets uniform there, to be the only guy to provide any offense, not named Juan Soto, who ripped an opposite field double off the wall. This is what you get in Jose Siri. The guy is going to have a ridiculous strikeout rate, in which he was in the first percentile last year, which means he struck out more than anyone else. But when making contact, he's one of the hardest hitters in all Major League Baseball, harder ones at least. And the gap-to-gap ability is there, the home run ability is there to give you 15 to 20 plus home runs and his sample size, and the speed is just through the roof. This guy is so electric on the base pass that he will be able to literally single-handedly steal the Mets runs, and that's exactly what he did here in this series finale. Because I know it's easy to look past certain key takeaways when your team loses a series, they drop their first 2 out of 3, you usually just want to push it aside and disregard it, but it's impossible to disregard the early signs of greatness, which will be Jose Siri this year, and very sample sizes for the Mets, whether that's playing great defense that we see in center, diving it out, really laying out the body, as well as making some strong throws at either home or at first, second, third, what have you. But it's the batch ball skills. If we can just have Jose Siri bat a little bit above the Mendoza line, and which he batted like 187 or so last year and like over 600 play appearances, so he played every game last year for the Rays. He obviously won't play every game this year for the Mets. He'll be in a platoon situation with Tyrone Taylor, just like what Tyrone went through with Harrison Bader last year. And Harrison Bader lost his job towards the end as the bat fell off, and he wasn't as fast, and the defensive ability, while it's strong, it's nothing that Tyrone couldn't handle. And Tyrone's bat was more clutch in a lot of situations for the Mets in the second half, especially down the stretch versus Bader had more of his breakout in the first half when other things weren't looking so hot for the Mets in flushing at that point in time. But in the case of Jose Siri, guys, get ready. He is a human highlight reel, an absolute electric factory. Love him or hate him, he's going to continue to be extroverted. He's going to pimp basically every single home run he hits, and he's going to be such a lethal weapon as soon as he gets on the base pass. If the Mets can have this man getting on base hopefully at least once every single game that he's playing or close to, you are a lock to hopefully either get a stolen bag or potentially a run scored because of just how much he is a difference maker with those legs. Shout out to Jose Siri. He really plays in a YOLO way. You know, you only live once, and I love that mentality for a guy that's going to probably more often than not be the Mets number 9 hitter, have some pop, but be a human electric factory otherwise, and those respective aspects of his game. But Jose Siri, do more of the same, baby. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I'm curious to know how you guys feel on the Jose Siri front. Now, to go from Jose Siri, guys, let's now talk a bit on the prospect front, because I'm sure you're wondering what is happening with Brandon Sproat. And we know what's happening with Brandon Sproat, so let me enlighten each and every one of you what exactly is happening there. Let me just scroll up here through my bookmarks. As you guys can see, Sproat looking majestic as ever, toeing the rubber for the official Brandon Sproat day here for AAA Syracuse. Syracuse was supposed to play last night at the time of recording this, but it was postponed due to weather, so they're back out there today. And sadly, AAA Syracuse got absolutely cooked 12-0, which leads us with the great question: how did Brandon Sproat perform? Let's find out. So there's Brandon, again, getting some nice swing and misses there. Mind you, this is against the Red Sox affiliate, one of the best farms in all Major League Baseball. Blade Tidwell was carving up guys like Marcelo Mayer and others with ease that we saw in the first game of the year, so that was very impressive to see. But Brandon Sproat, while he did get some swing and miss, and he did record 3 strikeouts, there are not too many alarming things, but there is one thing to make note, and that's the fact that Sproat couldn't go beyond 2 innings. He allowed 3 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. And the big bugaboo that we saw with Brandon Sproat in this outing is that his velocity was, in fact, down. Sproat prided himself on utilizing a fastball that even touched 101 last season. But so far that we saw throughout his first outing, mind you, it's a very limited sample size, but the context is important here because Brandon, as you guys can see here, through, let's see, Thomas Nestico of TJ Stats, who does a great job with breakdowns and all key pitchers across Major League Baseball. And Sproat threw the entire kitchen sink from the slider to the four-seam to the sinker, the changeup, the sweeper, and the curveball. And out of those pitches, there was only one pitch that was below league average, and that would have been league average, you know, especially at the MLB level, and that was the four-seam fastball. We know that while Sproat throws absolute gas, he struggled with the shape of his fastball early on. He can definitely work on it a bit more before blossoming into what he'll be with the Mets. The slider sat 87. The four-seam fastball sat 95.5, so we'll round it and give him 96, but that's obviously a certain downtick for sure from last year where he was sitting more so closer to 98 plus when everything was going right. The sinker as well sitting right around 95.5, changeup 91, sweeper 85, and the curveball 81. So not overly concerned and alarmed with Brandon Sproat, but this is yet a continuation of how AAA Syracuse started with him last year after he absolutely flew through the minor leagues in both A-ball, double-A ball, but once he got to Syracuse, that is where he started to have bugaboos. And the good thing about this, though, Mets fans, is we need to see Brandon Sproat continue to go through adversity before we know that we can give him an opportunity. So until he really solidifies himself as a true dominant weapon in AAA Syracuse, don't expect the Mets to call him up. That's pretty much verbatim what David Stern said heading into this season. No matter how good Brandon Sproat looked in spring training, it was one of those things where he needs to get more reps at the AAA level. He's only had his toes dipped in there for the most part, so getting more reps will be a pivotal thing for his development. But I'm encouraged to see Blade Tidwell's outing, not so encouraged to see Brandon Sproat's outing, but I am encouraged by the fact that it's the first start in what will be many for him this year, and Brandon Sproat will be on this Mets team this year, guys. You can hold me to it. I have the utmost confidence in the world that Brandon Sproat will not only be called up by the Mets in the first half of the season, but that he may very well go on to being a lethal option for them throughout the course of the year. But velocity was down, something to make note of, nothing overly concerning, but I understand that same thing with Edwin Diaz's velo being down that we saw this past spring training. Naturally, fans are going to overreact however which way they're going to go about it. So, speaking of AAA, guys, did anything happen that was positive outside of Sproat getting rocked and them losing 12-0? Not really. We saw guys like Swaggerty, Joey Meneses, Billy Kinney, and also McKinney, rather, and Donovan Walton was in leadoff at short, record a hit. But outside of that, you know, there really wasn't a whole lot to be desired here. You guys can't see it, so let me just move this like this for you. If we take a look at the reliever front, here's what happened. Herget, who did not make the team out of camp, allowed 1 earned run and 3 hits. Nunez, we saw sitting 97 plus. Everything looked good with Danil. He did allow 1 earned run, but we're not really concerned about the results with Nunez, as we are just make sure he's staying healthy. Nunez is just getting some more reps in AAA before the Mets inevitably call him back up for the bullpen, because he had kind of a slower ramp up in spring training coming back from injury this past year. Nunez is gas. Again, even if he gave up 3 runs today, I wouldn't be concerned. It's just him focusing on his arsenal, that 1-2 punch of the fastball that we know touches the upper echelon of the 90s, and the slider that, again, can touch the low 90s, high 80s as well. Love Nunez and looking forward to seeing more of him. Tyler Zuber allowed an earned run and 0.2 innings. Chris Davinsky did not allow a run and just 1 out. And Justin Hageman, who came in for a multi-inning relief there. Hageman, who's being stretched out more as a starter or multi-inning reliever type now. We see him piggyback towards the end here, and he got rocked. Gave up 5 earned runs on 6 hits. No walks, which is good, but he was leaving a lot of meat over the heart of the plate, and that led to his demise. A pair of strikeouts for Hageman, who, again, is one of these guys that the Mets are trying to stretch out to be a starter type for them this year. Not necessarily to be a starter on the Mets, but just to have him stretched out. That way he is available should they have to go to a swingman type such as himself throughout the course of the 162. But that was your key takeaways on the prospect end, everybody. So now let's get into what is happening for the Mets on the health statuses of guys like Francisco Alvarez especially, and then we're going to wrap this one up by getting into that Marlins series preview. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, everybody, because we just have a bunch of clips from the past day. I do believe that I have it in here. If not a problem. I certainly had it saved. So even though I don't physically have it in front of me right now, guys, and that's completely fine. So what we do in scenarios like this is I just go ahead and run the B-roll that I'm usually doing. But if you guys haven't seen the reports, it came out yesterday, reiterated from Carlos Mendoza and SNY and others, that Francisco Alvarez is right on par to be returning the Mets by hopefully late April. That would be a godsend if the Mets can get Alvarez back before we're even in the month of May. I predicted on the Rico Peroni podcast with Evan Roberts and P. Hoffman right before the season began on their show that I think that he will return right around May 14th, whereas I believe Evan said he'll return around March 26th, 27th, and then we saw Pete say he isn't returning until like June 1st and the Dodgers series. And that's the last thing I want, is for Alvarez to return to the same exact place that he got hurt in, rounding first last year in the first half of the season against those same Dodgers. Now, this year we know Alvarez coming back from the hamate bone injury. He's already catching softballs with that surgically repaired hand. So that's great news for Alvarez. Everything is trending in the right direction. He's not having any setbacks, God willing, knocking on wood right now. And the Mets need Alvarez big time, because not only is he a great game caller when he's right for this Mets team, but there's just so much raw talent. There's so much raw ability. And you know that Alvarez has all the makings of being a 25-30 home run hitter at the backstop position if he can just get in a groove and be the guy that we know he can so certainly be, that we saw just a couple years ago when he was raking the amount of home runs that he did going back to the 2023 season especially. But Alvarez, great news on his front, as well as is the case with Sean Manaea, who's back throwing. Everything is ramping up properly there. Frankie Montas is starting his ramp up as well, as he came back cleared with his imaging over this past week, which is awesome. So no longer is there an issue for him on that front. So everyone that has been injured pretty much for the most part, even Jeff McNeil, they're all positive signs in the right direction, and you can't complain if you're a Mets fan, because usually it's the opposite anytime that I have injury updates or injury news for each and every one I use. So great news on Alvy front and with the pitchers, and I cannot wait to see them back at this lineup. And for the case of Montas and Manaea, cannot wait to see what they will do on the bump for the Amazons throughout the course of the season. But let's get into, certainly, last but not least, our key topic, which is a Marlins series preview, everybody. The Mets kickstart their series in Miami officially this Monday for a 6:40 p.m. game. And guys, we are going to be covering one of these games. As of now, it's either going to be April 1st or April 2nd. I'm just toying which one I think is better for my respective schedule. It might be April 2nd, so just have that date marked. April 2nd looks like the prime day as of now that we're going to be doing our first official watch party live here on YouTube and through the Playback app. And in case you guys don't know what Playback is, let me just enlighten you for a hot second, because Playback is a revolutionary sports app that you guys can simply check out by clicking the link down below the description. You guys already see we have 40 plus members already, and this is just from promoting it the past 2 days since the season started. And what you guys do is you join playback.tv/WardyNYM, and you guys will be able to watch the actual Mets game live in real time with me at least once, if not multiple times a week, all year long here in the Playback app. And how it works is you guys sign in using your MLB TV subscription. It's that easy, and you're automatically set, ready to go. So when you join my live show, that's how it works. And we'll watch the game together. We'll be in sync together. No one should be having a delay or anything like that. And I'll be sharing my play-by-play while just genuine reactions as a Mets fan, and you guys get more of an inside look as to how I evaluate and watch the Mets game beyond doing play-by-play, which I do usually for watch parties. But it might be a little bit laid back depending on the game and certainly the outcome of the game and stuff like that. But we are also going to be simulcasting this both live in the Playback app that, again, you can sign up by clicking that link down below. It's so easy to do, and all you have to do, again, is to log in with your MLB TV subscription that you already have, should you have it. But if you don't have an MLB subscription, but you're saying, I don't want to miss out on hanging out with Wardy during the Mets game against the Marlins on April 2nd, then that's fine. You guys can chime in live on YouTube, as I'll be simulcasting there with a scoreboard showing, so that way, no matter if you're in YouTube or in Playback, I'm going to be interacting with all you guys at the same time, and I simply cannot wait. So shout out to Playback TV, great friends here on the platform. We're going to be doing a lot of awesome work with them, including some key giveaways as well that you guys got to be on the lookout for, including MLB subscriptions, among other things. So check them out. But guys, the reason why we bring this up is because that goes directly in hand with our series preview, because when we look at the matchups pitching-wise, Game 1 this Monday is going to be our southpaw, David Pearson, towing the rubber there to face off against Cal Quantrill. For those that don't know Cal Quantrill, buddy was batting practice last year, posted a north of a 5-year rate with Colorado Rockies, has had back-to-back seasons with around a 5 or so year rate. First year in Miami, in which they do have a solid pitching lab, so I wouldn't be shocked if Quantrill gave the Miami Marlins like 5 innings of 2 earned run ball against our Mets with the way our offense has started this year. Anemic, per usual, not named Juan Soto. And in the case of Juan Soto, he's our only guy that's raking the way that he is right now, so I expect another massive series from Juan Soto. And in retrospect, he really didn't do anything too crazy in the first one against the Astros. Had a home run, had a double, and a couple walks, but we know Juan Soto, those are rookie numbers. We know Juan Soto at his best maybe won't be hitting 3 home runs in a game like Aaron Judge, but Juan Soto will clutch up for you and be able to get you those big hits throughout the course of the game when you need to most, or a quality walk, which will then set things up for Alonso or someone else thereafter. But to have Peterson on the bump, and which he's thrived in this ballpark, I've seen Peterson do nothing short of dominant things in Miami for the most part over the past couple of years, so I'd expect a continuation of that against the lesser Marlins lineup. And then as we get into Game 2, this is without question the game of the series pitching-wise, as Kodai Senga will be towing the rubber for his official season debut against Sandy Alcantara. Sandy, who was a dominant Cy Young caliber pitcher just a couple years ago, missed all of last year with Tommy John or so. He's back, he's throwing gas, and he is going to be a key piece that will be dealt by the deadline by Peter Bendix and this Miami Marlins club, just like they did with Jesus Luzardo to the Phillies before the year began. Then we have Game 3, in which I'm eyeing to go live for that game, barring changes. Again, Game 2 is the best pitching matchup, but Game 3 may work best with my schedule, so that's why I'm throwing that out there for now. But I will have for certain what game we'll cover, announced tomorrow in our pre- and post-game coverage, so be on the lookout for that. Clay Holmes versus Connor Gillespie there for the final matchup, and that's important because Clay Holmes is looking to bounce back after what was, not the worst start, obviously, for him to kickstart his Mets tenure as a starter on his birthday, but wants to get the command right, obviously. I would like to see more utilization of that kick change that he said himself he probably should have thrown a couple more times, a new piece of the puzzle in that arsenal, versus Connor Gillespie, who in a couple outings last year, not as a starter, but just in a couple outings, looked solid, and now in his first starter outing this year, gave up 2 to 3 earned runs in 5 innings. So we'll see how Gillespie does against this Mets team. And really, it's going to come down to the offense. I don't have as much concerns on the pitching end, even if Senga maybe doesn't look as advertised his first time out there. It's really going to be, how does this Mets team handle the flamethrower in Sandy Alcantara, and how do they handle then the soft tossing Cal Quantrill for Game 1 and the young and high upside Connor Gillespie there in Game 3. That's what we're going to find out, everybody. But I'm feeling pretty good about the boys, making sure they can just go out and leg out a series victory at minimum. So that's what I'm going to hope for, and I hope you guys are not only expecting, but we'll see those exact results as we'll break down in our pre- and post-game coverage all throughout that series here on the platform. But guys and gals, that will do it for our latest Big Mets update segment, a long-winded one on this Mets off day. So I hope you sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed. If you did, smash that like and subscribe on your way out. Shout out to our amazing sponsors as well at SeatGeek. They have you covered with 10% off your next ticket order. So for Mets tickets for the opening home opener right around the corner, or for whatever games, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, you want to attend, SeatGeek has you covered. Use our unique link down below. Thank you guys kindly for that. And the final plug before we just get out of here, everybody, is that yes, in case you guys have been living under a rock, haven't followed the content the past couple days, we have something cooking here on the platform, everybody. And what we have is the official Wardy MLB platform, where I will be posting MLB-wide content here every single week. We're going to be dropping 2 to 3 videos every week, barring changes. We already are almost halfway to 1,000 subscribers, so continue to hit that like and subscribe button over there for MLB-wide content. Nothing changes here on the platform, just more Wardy takes this time, MLB-wide content, some content that's very different from what you typically see from me, and stuff that I'm passionate about that I look forward to breaking down. So thank you guys again for the endless support. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whatever you're watching this. And this is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace.